Hi everyone! Yay! Are we on? Hey everybody! Oh, I'm so happy to see you! Okay, if you're joining, we have a very exciting conversation coming up. I'm waiting for her to show her face. Ashley C. Ford, author of the incredible memoir, Somebody's Daughter, that was just released on June 1, and my book club, Read with Jules, has been going through it, and we have been just completely moved, and we've had some very tough conversations and some very beautiful conversations, and I cannot wait. So I'm very excited, so grateful that Ashley has agreed to come and join us in this conversation. So I'm waiting for her, and my apologies about the mess. I'm in the middle of a move right now. All right, I'm going to, hi! I'm going to see if I can request her. All right. Oh, yes!
Hi! We did it!
Hello!
Oh, I think my camera is dirty. There we go.
Oh, it's okay.
Hello!
Oh my goodness, my camera's falling. Hold on a second.
It's okay.
Welcome to the world of everything over the internet. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. How are you?
So much for joining us. Everyone, this is the amazing Ashley C. Ford, author of Somebody's Daughter. My goodness, we have just been relishing this in my book club, and I am so honored that you would join us.
It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. I love book clubs. I obviously love books. It's not so far because of everything being virtual. I haven't really gotten to like talk to and with readers this way. So I'm very excited. This
Oh,
is going to be a lot of fun.
I'm so glad. Well, first of all, I have to tell you, I was stalking you last night on Instagram because this is what we do now. And can we please talk about your Pattern magazine shoot? Because
Yes.
I was like, oh my God, did Spencer style this?
Wouldn't that be amazing?
I
Oh my God.
know.
It might have been even better. And it was fantastic. They reached out to me, Paulina, who founded and runs Pattern, reached out to me, and she essentially said, I've seen you do photo shoots before. I know people tend to do like kind of lifestyle-y photo shoots with you. We want to do glam. We want to do something that's completely different from what you normally do. And I think she was a little tentative or hesitant. Like she definitely thought that maybe I wouldn't, I guess, want that. Or I had like a particular thing about me that I didn't. I'm like, no. I don't want to do the work to look that way. But if you are all going to do the work to make me look that way, great. We'll have fun. It's like playing dress up.
For sure. Well, you looked stunning. So
Thank you.
stunning. But thank you so much for joining me and for speaking your truth. And this book has increased my empathy in a way that was really disturbing to me because I didn't want to empathize with your mom. I didn't want to empathize with these people that were hurting you or hurting one another. But my God, that is, honestly, Ashley, I think that is the mark of a true artist, is someone who can offer a story to us where we can see the truth, which is a very nuanced, very complex human relationship and human connection. And that was so moving to me. And quite honestly, I think you're one of the first people that I have read recently that was able to take us into the voice of a child. And I want to start by reading this little section.
Okay.
If you don't mind. Do you mind?
Yes. No, I do not mind. Please do.
Okay. Page 62, you say, my mother stopped stirring the pot again and cut off the burner. She turned to face me. Her face was stony and set. We made eye contact and it scared me. But I didn't feel I was allowed to look away. Yes, Ashley, she told me. Now why are you still in my face? She knew what I wanted, and she wanted me to know it would not be mine. We were locked in a power struggle, not that I would have known to call it that. And I was confused because I did not want power from my mother. I wanted her to acknowledge the pain in my body and heart. I wanted it to mean something to her because she loved me and I knew it. And I couldn't understand why she couldn't just say sorry. What was so wrong with me that I didn't deserve that?
Yeah.
As a mom myself, and then as a woman, what was it like for you to have to sit and recall and write and be in the very intense moments of your very complex childhood? What was that like for you to have to journey through writing this down for us?
Not great. It was not great. There was a lot of, I want to say this correctly. There were very, very many times where my dream or my hope was that if I could somehow get these memories and these moments down on the page, then I wouldn't have to carry them inside me anymore. That's what I was hoping would happen. Now, the problem with that I think a lot of people don't anticipate, memoirists and the like, and I certainly did not anticipate, was that there is part of you that doesn't want to let that stuff go. There's part of you that believes that if whenever you revisit that memory, you feel the full weight of that pain on you and in you, that it will keep you safe, that it will protect you from ever having to feel that way again. Like there's this idea that the memory is the wall, is the shield, being able to feel the memory. And it took me a really long time to say, I trust myself to remember the lessons of this feeling without having to re-experience it. I trust myself to hold on to the lesson. I hold myself to hold on to whatever was revealed to me in this moment. And it doesn't mean that my whole body has to revisit this moment. And so it wasn't until I accepted that, and that I accepted that, yeah, if I write this down and if I start talking about this a lot and sharing it, it will partly ease the pain. It will partly, at the very least, like diminish the severity of those memories and of the emotions that usually accompany them. And I had to accept that I would be okay without the memory devastating me. And it's really strange because in your mind, you think, I want this to be gone. Like, I want this to be away from me. But in reality, there's a reason you held on to it. There's a reason your mind and body held on to it. And until you can convince your mind and body that you don't need it anymore, it lives in you. And it'll stick around to the end of you.
Wow. You said something really early on in the book. You said it was either mine to have, to hide, or to heal. And I felt those themes throughout your book, with each of these circumstances, you having to make almost a cognitive decision. Was this mine to have? Was this mine to hide? And now is this mine to heal? And I can imagine that there is something about just unsticking the truth from your throat, like just giving it a place to live outside of one's body. I've compared the trauma in my own life to like putting an oxygen mask on a dead body. Like it's still alive, it's still there, it's still breathing, but it's not, but it's festering, but it's dead. It doesn't just survive. And it's almost like releasing it from your throat gives it a place to breathe on and not become this demon inside.
We're not meant to carry this stuff along. That is not actually how humans are designed. We have this, especially when it comes to our emotions, this highly individualistic mindset that makes us think that there are some things that are ours alone to bear. It is our own experience. It is our own thing. But that's not how we're made. We're made to share these things with each other. Not necessarily everybody. Maybe don't go scream in the street about the worst thing you've ever done. But especially if you've got people in your life who love and care about you, share some of this stuff with them. Share some of this pain. Because the thing is like when you share your pain with other people, in most instances, they can help hold it up. All that baggage, everything that's heavy on your shoulders, they can help you bear that weight. And you're thinking to yourself, well, I don't want to burden them. I don't want to put that weight on them. But the thing is, it's always going to be a much lighter load if two people are carrying it than one.
Yes.
You're not putting the full burden of your pain on another person. You are asking them to help you carry it as much and as far as they are able to. And love, real love, gives people, I believe, in most cases, strength that they didn't realize they had. And they will help you carry that love. And they'll be with you. They'll walk beside you. You have to give people the opportunity. And you have to understand that sometimes when people say no and they can't give that to you, it's not because they don't want to give it to you or because they think you don't deserve it. It could be because they're just carrying a few too many loads right now. They're holding up that burden with other people right now. And it's not about you. And you can't take that personally. You will feel like you want to. You will feel like it's somebody's fault that you got disappointed. But disappointment is a general part of the world. You're going to get disappointed. It's not always somebody's fault.
Yeah, I love that. We belong to one another, right?
Yes.
Pain belongs to one another. And that's what's so powerful about storytelling, is that we find the interconnectedness between your pain and mine.
Yes.
And although circumstantially our lives may look very different, we can find where those places interconnect. And for me, much of my life I spent hiding because raised in a very religious context, a very conservative upbringing. It wasn't necessarily taught to me, but I hid the truth of who I was. I hid the truth of who I was becoming. I didn't want the drama. I didn't want to bother anyone. I wanted to be seen as really good. And I realized that we hide when we don't feel safe. We hide when we don't feel safe enough to just simply be human, to be exactly who we are, and we feel like we have to be perfect, which is a theme throughout your book. And I love this, that as a child, you talk about this idea of perfectionism in goodness and badness. You're like, no room for my badness, or there's no beauty in there's no beauty in badness, and I want my goodness to shine. Like you were wrestling with this idea of goodness and badness, which to me now as a 36-year-old woman, I'm going, oh, she felt like she had to be perfect. She felt like she had to be human. And I love the quote in East of Eden, you might be familiar with it, that says, and now that you don't have to be perfect, you can be good.
Yeah.
And I wanted to ask you, like, how has your relationship with goodness and perfectionism changed? How has that aided in your courage to be able to come out of hiding and to share your story with the world?
Well, I had to get over perfectionism in order to write my book. I'm not saying it'll never come back. I'm not saying I won't struggle with it in some other form over the course of my life. We know that I'm susceptible to it at this point, but I learned a lot of really fantastic lessons while I was writing this book about how sometimes good is done. Sometimes good is just finished. And you have to let that be true. And you have to allow yourself to be okay with that. And it's really, really hard because I am an eldest daughter and a Capricorn, and I like things to be a certain way. And when I don't have faith in myself to be able to execute what I want to be able to execute the way I want to execute it, or the way that I think is right, to execute it, then I get really down on myself and I experience paralysis where I can't do anything. I can't even move forward on a project because I am so worried about beginning it the right way. And it really helped me. My friend Daniel Jose Older years ago wrote this amazing essay about how writing begins with forgiveness. And how when you sit down to write something, you have to forgive yourself for whatever you didn't do yesterday, whatever you meant to write, the fact that you wanted to finish a chapter and you only wrote a paragraph, whatever it was, forgive yourself for it, because today is a new day. You need to be able to restart. And if half of you is worrying about what you did or didn't do yesterday, you're not fully present to the page. You're not fully present for yourself. You're not fully present for your art. And it's harder to be intentional in the way that you want to be. So you just have to, every time you sit down to write, forgive yourself for whatever you didn't do before. So I've practiced that, and that's helped me out a lot, because that messed up binary of good or bad, the essentialist idea that a human being could be all good or all bad, I just don't subscribe to it. I don't believe it.
Right.
And it's not, and it might not be what I want to believe. You know, it would be a lot easier and make me feel a lot safer if I thought that I could just tell who were good people and who were bad people, and I could live my life with that kind of clarity. That would be amazing. Yeah, let's do that, right? Like that would be my first choice.
Right.
But in reality, my first choice is reality. And reality says that that is not true. It has never been true. It never will be true. Everybody has this fantastic capacity for human emotion and expression. And it's a beautiful thing, actually. It is a hard thing, but most beautiful things are kind of hard or kind of tough. Like so many of the things that we think of as like, whoa, that's amazing. We're seeing the finished result of somebody else's extremely hard work. And that's true for everything.
Yes, it's absolutely true. And for you, like you paint it so beautifully for us, your whole story moves from this girl that wants to be invisible, you know, and you talk about that a lot, which is just heart-wrenching. On page 105, you said, you say, I was nothing. And nobody cared what happened to nothing. Whew. And then you move from this belief of nothingness, this belief of I've got to be all of the things before I show up in the world, to your worth as a woman, the value of your female body, the worth of your words, of your talent, of your art, your just whole worth, all of everything combined is what makes you a worthy individual. Not the one thing, not the one goodness, not the one perfection, but all of the imperfect imperfections, the perfect imperfections that we have.
Right.
And I wanted to say to you, I feel like it's so easy to find our worth in proximity to other people.
Yeah.
I saw this with you a lot in reading it, and correct me, of course, if I'm wrong, but a lot of times your ability to manage your mom, or your ability to manage these relationships, or your, or me being able to say, I'm a wife, I'm a mom, I'm a this, I'm a not, you know, like we measure ourselves, we measure our worth in proximity to other people, and even to other people's abilities, as you said, to offer forgiveness or to restore something that has been broken. We measure our worth and value. So how does one move from finding our worth in proximity to other people and what they may or may not be able to give us, and finding our worth within?
Practice. Most things about our society and our culture, despite having a highly individualistic view of blame and fault, we have actually a really collective, I think, view of what success looks like. which absolutely leads to emotional and mental devastation for a lot of people, because we are taught to compare ourselves to other people, to see if we're okay, to look to other people to correct us socially, is a huge part of our society. And I have stopped giving a shit. Like, I think part of it was like, I always tell people when my grandma died, I think I inherited her lack of fucks. And I'm not sure that's not true. Like, something really shifted after my grandma passed away. I had already been in a place of trying to find more self-worth and more regard for myself, um, especially. But after my grandma died, what started to happen for me was just not caring what other people's opinions were about how I was choosing to live my life. I knew that I lived my life in the direction of joy, and that I lived my life in a way that I sought to feel good most days in my body and in
Yes.
my mind and emotionally. I knew what kind of people I wanted around me. And it was getting easier and easier to let the people I didn't want around me to know, like, I don't want you around me. And I even became more comfortable just being who I am in friendships, and letting people know, like, hey, I'm not a person who texts every day.
Right.
I'm not a person who's like really very active in group chats. Like, I'm just not that person. But
Mm.
that doesn't mean that if you ever text me or call me, that I'm going to be annoyed. And I'm going to be like, why is this person calling or texting? They never text me. That's fine. It's fine that you never text me. Like, it's really okay. And I have to be able to be that person. I have to be friends with people who can have compassion for me, for my
Yeah.
social anxiety, for my need to be home. I need friends who want to be friends with who I already am.
Mm.
And that has been a huge thing for me moving forward, is knowing who my people are, knowing who I am, and essentially deciding that anybody's opinion outside of that might be interesting, but it is never and will never be life altering,
Mm.
because the people who love me,
Right.
and I love me.
Yes.
And if nobody else in the world loves me or cares about me or is interested in taking care of me or being on my side, I
Mm.
will be on my side
Mm.
every time. And that's enough.
Yes. You've chosen to advocate for yourself. For so
Yes,
many years, you didn't have an advocate. And you realize, like, you can't offer to the world what you've not offered to yourself.
you can't.
And you are offering it to yourself. God, I love when you paint for us, like, you're in your room and you're beginning to love your body, and
Yes,
looking at yourself, and you're talking to yourself, and you're affirming your physical body, and you're affirming your mind, and like, you're falling in love with yourself. And my God, what I love about that is it gives permission to the rest of us to love
good,
ourselves for who we are. You know,
good.
into the entire world, this book has given permission that we can each stare at ourselves in the mirror and fall in love with ourselves, even when other people don't know how, or we
Yes,
have been abandoned. Which, by the way, I feel like abandonment is like subsequently the freedom that we have needed from those people. You know, I'm like, maybe you abandoned me, but actually I needed that to happen, so thank you.
yes, yes. I would say I've been abandoned once, really, in my life. Like, just abandoned, having somebody who is very close to me in my life, who is a part of my life in an integral way, decide that they just want to, like, kind of disappear,
Mm.
after a year of a relationship, like, gone, like, essentially one phone call, don't hear from for months after that. And if I had stayed involved with that person, there would be no book.
Mm.
I would not be a writer.
Mm.
All of the confidence and love that I needed to cultivate in order to be who I am and write this book, um, came in my relationships, came in people showing me how I deserve to be loved when I didn't necessarily believe it.
Right.
And none of those people would have been in my life if that person was still in my life.
Right.
None of them. And I think about that all the time, that like, yeah, like that was tough. That was hard. That was one of the worst places emotionally I've ever been in, to be abandoned. But it's like being abandoned by your bills. It's like being abandoned by your problems.
Yes.
It's like your student loan office calling you and being like, hey, I don't know how to tell you this, but your loans have abandoned you.
Right.
You know, it's like, great, tell them to
Awesome.
stay gone. Like, let me change my address right now. I don't ever need you to ever find me again. And just in case it's a mistake, don't come home. Ain't no home here for you anymore. Like, that's how it feels. Like, that's what's real, because I have no interest anymore. I have no interest in what harms me, what seeks to harm me, what harms me incidentally. I don't want it. I don't want it for me, and I don't want it for nobody else. So, yeah, shout out to being abandoned, because quite often, as you said, it's exactly what you need.
That's so powerful. I love Dr. Maya Angelou, which you mentioned her in your book, that I long, as does every human being, to be at home where I find myself, has got to be one of my favorite quotes from her.
Yeah.
And when I think about this conversation, and I noticed that I think you have home tattooed on your clavicle.
I do. I have it right here,
Yeah.
if you can see.
That's one of your Instagram posts, and I just thought, my God, that's what this book is. Yes, you are somebody's daughter. Like, I love that movement from nobody to like, I'm somebody's daughter, like that awakening. But ultimately, this was a homecoming to yourself.
Yeah.
This was finding home within yourself.
Yeah.
And accepting and letting everything outside of it just burn to the ground. Anything that no longer serves you, anything that does not understand your worth or your value, anything. I have on my wall here by my kids' rooms that criticism does not live here. We only allow those who will honor our story onto our island.
Yes.
No one is welcome. No one else
Nobody else.
Except those that will honor who we have become and who we are becoming.
Absolutely.
And I wanted to ask you, well, I guess we're running out of time.
It's okay. Keep going. We got a little time. Let's go.
Like, what does home mean to you now? You know, is it when you were actually physically going home? I don't mean metaphorically. I mean physically, like, well, and I want to hear home just in general as well, but like, is it stepping into a wound? Is it stepping back into a chrysalis of sorts? Like, I'm packing up and leaving an apartment that I've lived in for 2 years. And this has felt like my womb, like a chrysalis. Like, this is a moment of my life that that no one really saw. I only allowed a few people in here. Like, does home feel like that? Is it the mirror that is reflecting back to you all of the ways that you've changed? What is home for you?
Right now, home is my little family. Home, you know, I would say that my apartment in New York, even though it was still the place where I healed the most, and where I got serious about my mental and emotional healing, and where I found myself in the circumstances to be able to build that foundation for reparenting myself. So that apartment definitely felt like my womb a little bit. Here, it's different. Moving to Indianapolis, moving back to Indiana, knowing that Indiana feels like home. I know a lot of people keep asking me, why would you move from Brooklyn to India? Is it the pandemic? And I was like, no, it's not. It's not the pandemic. This is just what feels like home to me. I love it here. I have amazing neighbors who bring me strawberries from their garden, and like, were the first people I saw after being interviewed by Oprah. They were the first people I saw, like, and they showed up with champagne, and I got to, like, it's amazing. My life here with
By
my
the way,
husband and my dog.
recognize that. Like, you're like, oh, when I was interviewed by Oprah, and then, and like it's an average.
Yeah.
Like, oh,
It
that
happened.
one day.
Well, yeah, I mean, it happened and it was great. It was absolutely great. But I got to tell you, being interviewed by Oprah is fantastic, and it is a moment I will never forget. Being interviewed by Terry Gross, fantastic, a moment I will never forget. But the moments that broke me down were the messages I received from my siblings after they'd read the book and after they'd gotten to experience the book. I love my parents, don't get me wrong. They might read the book, they might not. Like, there's a lot going on there that I respect,
Right.
and I respect them and I trust them to do what's best for them. But my siblings all read my book and sent me texts about it. And those were the days when I cried the most out of happiness. And so, even though, yes, my husband and my dog and, like, this little place we're living now very much feels like home, I know that in, like, my deepest, like, strongest, like, core heart, home is, the bond that I have with my siblings and my love for them. They're home in that capacity.
Wow. I am overwhelmed. And I just have to tell you that the conversations that your book has encouraged in our book club have been really remarkable and very, very vulnerable, like to a degree that is rare. And that is because you have been willing to step out and share something that, yeah, I just wondered, like, how much courage it takes for you to.
It doesn't take that much courage at this point, and that's because I know that it's better. I know that it's better to tell the truth. I know that that's a better life, where you don't have to pretend, where you don't have to hide, when you can say what you feel and be heard and be held by people who love and care for you. Like, that is a kind of bliss that is worth any cost that comes along with it. At least for me. I don't know that that would be true for every other person. I honestly suspect it would be, but I don't make promises. I just tell people what worked for me, and this is what works for me. To be honest, to tell the truth, to be able to live as myself every moment of my life. That's what I need.
And what freedom to tell our truth. Isn't that what it's about? And the people that be beside us are meant for us, and those that won't are not meant for us, as we've said. I like to say that Ralph Waldo Emerson ruined my life, because I made this really bad mistake as, like, a very conservative Christian to begin reading Whitman and Emerson and Margaret Fuller. I'm like, oh God, my life is over.
Yep. What am I gonna do now?
What am I gonna do now? And so there's, like, this moment, and I wanted to tell you, you probably know this, but on the front of one of Emerson's books, Walt Whitman writes, like, as a little quote for the book, he says, "I was simmering, simmering, simmering. Emerson brought me to a boil."
Oh.
And I'm like, oh my God, this is the power of words.
Yes.
Power of the interconnectedness of story.
Yeah.
This is the power of us collectively coming into our own, being at home within ourselves, finding our voice, and unsticking the truth from our throats. Like, you are bringing the next Whitman to a boil. You're bringing the next liberator to a boil. Like, that to me
I hope so.
Oh, you are. You are. Even me. I mean, I'm so lit up, sweating all of the places.
You look great. So the sweat works for you.
Oh, great. Awesome. Thank you. Okay, so in closing, I wanted to ask you,
Yes.
because of the Emerson Whitman, like, I know that reading was it was like a totem pole of your liberation,
Mm-hmm.
which it was for me too. Who are the authors that you're reading now? And like, what is the book that you're reading now, and what's next on your list?
Well, I got to shout out Clint Smith's How the Word is Passed, because that is a phenomenal book. And a lot of the history that he goes into in that book really helped me um, see some of the connections in my circumstances that go back and back and back and back. And there are so many things that I've thought to myself before, like, how do you not have a clearer picture of this in your mind? Or how could you not know about these certain things that have affected your life? And I read his book, and it's really easy to see that, like, history is and can be manipulated in the way that we tell those stories. And that's absolutely something that happened to me. So I love that book. I am halfway through Natasha Brown's Assembly.
Yes.
Which is fantastic. I thought this was beautiful, and I loved it so much. Where's the book I was just finishing? It's by the bed, but it's Anna Sale's Let's Talk About Hard Things.
Yes.
It was really, really, really fantastic. And two books that I always suggest to people, no matter what, like, I don't care who you are, and I don't care if you had the best parents in the world or if nothing terrible ever happened to you. That's not true for most people in the world. So if you want to understand those people a little bit better, and if you are one of those people, understand yourself a little bit better, there are two books I love. One of them is called Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents, which is just about, like, the fact that a lot of our parents didn't get a great emotional education or examples of how to deal with our emotions. And the effects of that are handed down through generations, and this is what it looks like. And it's a really fantastic book. Whether you're an adult child of an emotionally immature parent or a parent, whatever, like, I think it's a fantastic book. And the second book is called The Body Keeps the Score.
Yes.
And it's just phenomenal. It is about the way trauma lives and expresses itself in the body and behavior. And it is a hard read, but one of the most phenomenal books I've ever read about trauma and how it shows up in our lives and in our world.
Do you want to know, I've had that book for a while.
It's hard.
I want to read it.
It's hard. I had to do audiobook because I couldn't read it. Like, I couldn't do it. I had to do audio because it was intense. I needed to be able to do other things while I was listening to it.
Right.
Yeah.
When you talk about forgiving yourself before you write, the word forgiveness is just, it's kind of a mind fuck for me. You said something in your book. You said something like he came before I realized I had the choice to forgive.
Yeah.
And I wonder, what role does forgiveness play for you? Because I so appreciate, as a victim of child sexual abuse as well, there's always, it feels like this covert kind of abuse for people to be like, well, hurry up and forget. That's part of your healing. And I'm like, I feel like that's not for me to offer.
Yeah. That's also not what they're asking you for. They're asking you for absolution.
Right.
And you don't owe that to anybody. You never have to give that to anybody.
We're not here to make other people comfortable. We're certainly not here to erase the hardships that we've gone through in order to make people feel more at ease.
No, I don't believe that. I don't believe that we are. Yes, I agree with you. I believe that forgiveness is sort of giving up on what your life would have been or could have been if different things had happened. You have to let go of the resentment. That's what I think. I don't think forgiveness is about hunky-dory, let's all hang out again and get back together and act like nothing ever happened. That's not forgiveness. Forgiveness is, you know what, the anger that I have toward you, which I cannot put inside of you, but I do not want inside of me. I'm letting go.
Yes.
That's it. I'm letting that anger go. And I'm not doing it 1 second or 1 minute before it feels like it's what I want to do.
Right.
That's what forgiveness is to me.
Yes. Disconnecting the oxygen mask from a cadaver.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
allowing it to die. Not absorb,
Yes.
but allowing it to die.
Yes, because forgiveness is also, it can be about a restart. It can be a moment to decide that, like, what we were before this moment where I have to forgive you, like that version of us is gone. And now there is a new version of our relationship. And this transgression, this moment, and my forgiveness are part of this moving on.
Right.
Like now it's part of it.
Right.
But that has to be a decision you make. People who feel forced to forgive, people who feel like they have no choice but to forgive, are not really forgiving you. They are deciding to hide.
Right.
They are deciding that you're not safe, and they're hiding from you. And they're saying forgiveness, but what it's really saying is there's a wall here now, and there's not a door in that wall.
Right.
And I won't, and if there was a door in that wall, I wouldn't open the door to you. But I said forgive, so now I guess we're fine. And it's like, and you're not fine. In most cases in that situation, you're not fine. You need more time. You need maybe more processing. You need to get this out of you and out of your body. And you need to understand that you can't put it inside of them. You can't make somebody sorry.
Right.
You can't do that. And we have to be okay at some point with the fact that we can't read each other's minds, that we can't put emotions inside of each other, and that our only course of action, the only course of action that's going to give us the healthy, loving relationships we want, is to communicate with each other about the good and the bad.
Which requires safety.
Which requires safety.
So how would you say, friend to friend, spouse to partner, whomever, how do you cultivate safety within a relationship that allows the other person to be at home completely and wholly within themselves? Not at home within you, not at home in this sort of codependent way, not at home if you do, then I do, then you do, then we do. Like at home within yourself, whole and complete, entirely good and approved in and of oneself. And you are too, equally as autonomous. How do we offer that safety to one another?
I think all we can do is listen and try. Listen and try. Everything that you want, everything that you wish you could get from a person, you should be able to give to that person. But if you're not getting it back from that person, that is an unequal, it probably doesn't feel good exchange. Right. And then you need to do the hardest thing, which is setting a boundary. And it's really hard. I found that I was so good at setting boundaries with people who I didn't give a shit about, or who I didn't really want to be around, or I didn't really trust them anyway. And it was so much harder to learn how to set boundaries with people I love. And how to tell people I love and care about and I do want to hang out with, how to say, I love you so much, and I think you're wonderful, and I think you're beautiful. But when you talk about your body like that around me, it doesn't feel good to me. It makes me upset. And it's not because I feel like you shouldn't be able to talk about your body. It's just that when you start throwing around words like fat and chunky and things like that, and I know that you mean them in a negative way, even if they're not directed at me, that hurts. So I know that that's a really hard thing to change. Fat phobia is everywhere. Society uses these words wildly, but I
Right.
would appreciate it if you just tried when you were with me. And I'm not going to be mad at you. I'm not mad at you now. It's just something that I noticed,
Mm.
and it's something that I wanted to talk about, you know? But
Right.
you have to be able to be vulnerable enough to have that conversation with them.
Yeah.
And you have to realize that their reaction isn't about you.
Right.
It's not about you. If somebody reacts really kindly and compassionately, it's because that's who they want to be to
Mm.
you. They want to be kind and compassionate to you. It's not about you, but it is about how they want to be, how they want to treat people. If they start mocking you for that request, making fun of you for it, or something like that, that's also not about you. It's not because you're too sensitive. It's because that's how they've decided they want to present themselves as a person
Mm.
to a friend. Because maybe they even think that's what love looks like in some capacity. And you
Right.
have to be able to have those conversations. You have to be able to notice those things. And you've got to trust yourself to know what feels good to you. And
Mm.
when something doesn't feel good to you, you have to be able to trust yourself to change it.
Mm. There's such a sense of agency and
Yeah.
power in that, which that is hard work. That is the detachment from everything superfluous that would maybe help define us, or the places where we would otherwise find our worth or find our value.
Mm-hmm.
This is the ability to set a healthy boundary, is the ability to say, I want my heart to be whole. I
Yeah.
want to be whole within myself. And this is causing me to doubt that, or this is causing me to, you know, um, bring on some sort of something that is not mine to have.
Yes. Yeah. Or it just doesn't feel good to me.
Right.
That's enough.
Right.
That's enough. You don't always have to have the grasp of exact language to describe the minutia of every emotion so that you can like get a person to understand. That once again is fantastical. That's wishful thinking. That's
Mm.
you trying to either read their mind or like be able to get them to read yours. It's not going to work. It should be enough that you can tell a person who loves you,
Mm.
that doesn't feel good to me when you talk to me that way.
Right.
Or it doesn't feel good to me when you talk about bodies that way. It
Mm.
doesn't feel good to me when you talk about, you know, my parents that way, my friends, that whatever it is, you know. And it's going to be true that some people are going to want a different kind of friendship, and they're going to be like, well, I want a friendship where I can talk shit and say this, you know, like this way. And it's like, that's okay. Go find one of those friends. I'm
Right.
just not that friend for you.
Right.
Like this might be just a place that we don't go. This might be something that we don't talk about. But I'm also, you know, at the same time, I'm not going to pretend that this doesn't bother me to keep the peace. I'm going to tell you that it bothers me, and you're going to decide how you want to react to that information,
Mm-hmm.
because it's just information. It
Right.
bothers me. It hurts my feelings. I don't like the way it feels.
And typically, I think that that are bothered by boundaries are the ones that benefited from you not having any. So,
Yes. Yes,
yes,
that's exactly it.
somebody hit you any longer by stroking whatever ego or issue or insecurity you have.
Yep. Yep.
I
Every
think the
time.
story to me, Ashley, is like we belong to each other. It's the way that we began it. We
Yes.
belong to one another. Our stories are meant to be shared. We're meant to find the ways that we interconnect with each other, although circumstantially probably very different from all of the people that I've been watching. You know, none of our lives are going to look the same,
No.
but we can find these points of connectedness, which is how we belong. So I want to encourage everyone watching right now, if you've not picked up this book, please go and buy it from your local bookseller, because you will be so inspired And Ashley, you've given us such a gift, and poetic. My God, there are some amazing moments of prose in here that I didn't get into, but like the fish and the frog scene with your granddad and the snake scene with your oh my goodness. And I'm not going to ruin it for people who haven't listened to it, but my goodness, you guys, go and buy it, please, and support Ashley and all of your work. Yeah, it's been a pleasure to speak to you, and I'm happy to get to know you and see that your heart is as radiant and full and intelligent and poetic as your book has been to us.
This has been my pleasure. I've had a lot of fun talking about it with you, Julianna. I loved your questions. It's been a great time. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. Love to everyone listening and watching, and we'll talk to you soon.
Bye, guys. Bye.